morning. The constable has confirmed that the warrant for this ATM has been properly posted. The town clerk has informed me that there is a quorum present. This annual town meeting of the town of Hamilton is now open. My name is Bill Bowler. I'm the town moderator. Welcome to the June 20th, 2020 annual town meeting, and thank you very much for coming. To assist me with vote counting, I've appointed 3 tellers who've been properly sworn, and hopefully they won't be needed since with our new technology. We'll start as always by saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm not sure where I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. A few general reminders. If you're a registered voter in Hamilton, you should have picked up a voting clicker, which looks like this. If you haven't and wish to vote, then please get one now. Please turn your cell phone to silent. If you need to take or make calls, please leave the meeting to do so. Good luck getting service here. Third, we welcome non-voters to the town meeting, but do ask that you sit in the visitors area, which is located in the back. I'd like to introduce the people who are sitting in front so you all know who they are. We have Tom McEnany, Town Council, Sharon George, Interim Town Clerk, Joe Demelowitz, Town Manager, Marissa Batista, Finance Director, Jeff Hubbard, BOS Chair, Rosemary Kennedy, Darcy Dale, Sean Farrell, and Bill Olson, Select Board members, David Wanger, FinCom Chair, Nick Tenson, John Prelage, Christina Schenk-Cargrove, and Valerie McCormick, members of the FinCom, and Dr. Julie Kuchenberger, Second Superintendent of the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School District, and school committee members, David Polito, Michelle Bailey, excuse me, Jean Lee, Michelle Horgan, Peter Wolchik, and Ty Prayema. I've asked non-resident town officials and those assisting the selectmen or finance committee to be present here so that they may be available to answer questions. Members of the press and a video crew have also allowed to be present. I hope you've all brought your copy of the warrant. If you have not, there are some, I believe, in the back. The agenda for the meeting is the warrant. It was prepared by the Board of Selectmen. To bring an agenda item before the meeting, I will recognize a member of the sponsoring board, committee, or individual so they can make a motion. If the motion is seconded, I will recognize the proponent to speak to you about it. Once they're done, I'll open the discussion to the public, voting public. If you wish to speak, you must first ask me to recognize you. To save time, I ask that you already be standing at one of the microphones over there and over there, properly socially distanced, please. Once you're recognized, please state your name and street address, and then you'll have 3 minutes to make your comments. Your comments must be what's in what we call the 4 corners of the motion, so no personal comments, and keep it to just the facts, ma'am. No applause, please. All motions to amend must be submitted to the town clerk in writing. If you need assistance in framing a motion to amend, town council will provide you with some assistance. No more than 1 amendment may be pending at the same time, and a vote is first taken on the amendment and then on the main motion. As I mentioned, when a vote is taken, we'll be using the electronic voting clickers. Greg Alexander of the company Turning Technologies will demonstrate the use of the clickers in just a moment. In the unlikely event that we have trouble with the new technology, we'll revert to the use of voter cards, which we don't have voter cards, so if we do have to use the backup system, we'll ask you to raise your and I'll decide visually whether there's the necessity of a counted vote. Now I'll ask Greg Alexander to demonstrate the technology.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Everyone, each registered voter should have a response card keypad. When a motion shows up on the screen, you will simply press the 1A button to cast a yes vote, the 2B button to cast a no vote. At that time, you'll see the green light blink on the face of the device. You will see either 1/A or 2/B indicated in the LCD screen as well. And if you don't see that, your vote wasn't cast. If you push the wrong button, you change your mind, you can simply press the other button. Okay, you can vote as many times as you like. You're only going to be casting one vote, and it will be the last vote that you cast before the polling closes. So just as an example here, a successful yes vote, you'll see the green light flash, 1/A in the LCD window. For a successful no vote, I guess it's on this side too, you'll see the 2B and the green light. If you push a button that is not a valid vote, you push a 3, anything other than a 1 or a 2, you'll see a circle with a line through it. Okay? So we do have a couple of practice votes here for you. In 1638, Mr. Winthrop the youngest, son of the founder of the Massachusetts colony, bought most of present-day Essex County from, I'm not sure how to pronounce the Indian name, Chief of the Agawam Indians, for the sum of 20 English pounds. This is a trivia question from the town's website. So go ahead, you can cast your votes. You can see the green box in the upper right corner indicating that polling is open. There's a counter right next to that. The moderator, when he feels that it's time to get everything wrapped up, will make some type of an announcement that, come on, let's get it wrapped up. That will cue me to advance, and there will be a 10-second countdown timer from there. So once you see that timer and it gets down to 0, you'll no longer be able to vote. That's when it will close. So you want to make sure you've got it locked in. You see the polling closed, and then we will immediately see the chart with the result of the vote. Okay? I've got one more for you to practice here. Defacing a... I'm sorry? Hang on. I'll pop back there real quick. Go ahead and push the buttons. Raise your hand if it's not. Okay. Those 3 people, there should be a runner around that can swap the devices out.
Is it supposed to stay on?
No, it will not stay on. It will flash on, it will only be on for a couple of seconds, and it will shut off.
So when I take my finger off and it goes blank?
Yeah, you don't have to hold the button down. Push the button, it will blink, it will be on for 2 or 3 seconds, and then it will shut off. Does that make some hands go down? Yeah, those folks over there should be okay. We should be able to keep it about 400 feet. Is anybody still having an issue? Do we need to switch out? We've got one back here, one there, and one there, so 3. There should be somebody that's got some extras that can switch those out for you. If you do experience any issue during the meeting with the voting, then simply please raise your hand, and we do have somebody that should be able to come around and get that swapped out for you. There is. Oh, I don't see Sharon. Is there somebody switching those out, Sharon?
Yeah, they're going to go work on it, and they're working on it now.
Okay. Try pushing the button again if you've got your hand up. Just do it one more time. So
said they weren't working yet. How many people are here now? Yeah, I can see it. Anybody that's not a voter is gonna have to be considered. Raise your hand, and then you make the call, and then somebody wants to do it.
Yeah.
You get 7 people to stand up and yell. Because you can vote. Yeah.
While we're waiting for more chairs, going to ask State Representative Brad Hill is here, and he would like to make a few brief remarks. So, Brad?
Good morning, one and all. Normally, I would get up and give you a State of the State address before town meeting to give you inclination of what's going on at the state level. I think we all know what's going on at the state level. Financially, the state is looking at probably a $6 to $7 billion hole going into the next fiscal year. But with that said, we are getting some help, or we hope to get some help, from the federal government in trying to plug some of that hole. We also are looking at a very good rainy day fund in the state where we've accumulated over $3 billion for such an occasion as we are now facing. So the hope would be that moving forward, and I wish I had exact numbers for you today, but I don't, but moving forward, it looks as though with the help from the federal government, help from our rainy day fund, that things may not be as bad as they could have been without those two factors. We have been in contact with your town management almost on a weekly basis, updating them what's been going on financially, as well as other things that are happening in the state. And I can assure you that those conversations will continue as we get through this coronavirus epidemic together. And I appreciate everybody who's been contacting our office and locally your administration here, trying to get answers to some of the questions that are being asked. Please don't hesitate to contact Senator Tarr's office or my office with any questions you have as we move through this and the governor makes the decisions that he is making. I'll leave it at that and hope within the next few weeks we can give you some better financial numbers as our budget starts to get put together as well as yours. Normally, we sit at a selectmen's meeting on someone's last meeting to recognize the efforts of an individual who's given to your community. Today, we're going to take this opportunity to do it here and recognize 3 very special people who have given a lot of years, a lot of time to you, the citizens of Hamilton. The first individual we'd like to recognize today is our good friend Peter Clark, who has given over 40 years of service to the town of Hamilton. 40 plus years. He's given 40 years to the Hamilton Planning Board, and a few projects to note include the redevelopment of the shopping plaza in downtown Hamilton, the Hamilton's master plan, the Patton Homestead gift proposal, revisions of bylaws throughout the 40 years. He helped formation of the Hamilton Soccer League, the Community Preservation Act, the Open Space Preservation, the Essex County Greenbelt Conservation Restrictions, the town's trash and recycling programs. Affordable housing has been something that he's cared about very deeply. And in 1985, he and his wife created, along with Dana Hanson, the Hamilton Wenham Open Land Trust, which was part of the coalition that has preserved Chabaco Woods. Peter, thank you for your years of service to the town of Hamilton. It has been greatly appreciated. Our next individual is given many, many years as well is Edward Howard, who I think is here, but haven't seen him yet. Edward has given over 19 years to your planning board here in the town of Hamilton. At least 19 years that span 2 5-year elected terms and 3 elected terms after 2009. He's also been a member of your Hamilton Historic District Commission for approximately 10 years. And if I remember, I don't remember, but from what people have told me, back in 1970, he brought the circus to Hamilton, where over 3,000 people attended the performances. So we want to say thank you, Ed, for everything that you have done for the town of Hamilton. And again, thank you for your service to this great community. And lastly, we're going to recognize one of your members of your select board, Jeff Hubbard, who is retiring after 3 terms or 9 years of service as one of your community leaders here in Hamilton. I have worked with Jeff for those 9 years, and I can tell you, 90% of the time you see your elected officials on TV or at a meeting. What you don't see is what goes on behind the scenes. And Jeff has done yeoman's work on your behalf over those 9 years. He never, ever, ever hesitated to make sure that he got the answers to every question that was asked. He made sure that the community in which he served, the people for who he served, got the justice that they needed in front of every board meeting. We know your love for downtown and how much you wanted to bring businesses to the downtown area, bring people to the downtown area, and make sure it was a beautiful place. More importantly, as I said earlier, you, the citizens of Hamilton, were always who he cared about the most. And he wanted to make sure he did his best job for you and that your voices were heard in every single turn, as long as he was going to be elected. So Jeff, we thank you for your 9 years of service as a member of the Select Board, and I know one of your colleagues wants to say a few words. To all 3 of you, thank you. We have citations for you. We're going to leave them up here. Congratulations on a job well done.
Good morning, everyone. Sean Farrell, Board of Selectmen. I just really, and sorry I'm being redundant here, but just thank you to Ed and Peter for all your years, and specifically to Jeff. As a former chair, I know how much that is on the workload for the town and the citizens, and you're on bonus time right now. So we really appreciate you going the extra mile for us over the years. And for myself personally and the rest of the board, we thank you for your service. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, thank you, Representative Hill, and thank you to those folks who provided those many, many years of service. Jeff sent me to my second term turn on the Board of Appeals. Thanks, Jeff. We're about ready to move on. I would like to thank everyone for being here, and I'd like to thank all the people that helped make this possible. As you can imagine, in these extraordinary circumstances, this has been an incredible amount of work and effort, and we've had employees of the town, members of the boards, the school department, and thank you very much. Thank you to the Council on Aging for the gift bags, but mostly thanks to you, the citizens, for coming out to this very important town meeting. So, okay, without further ado, I think we're ready to get going. I'm sorry?
We don't believe we have enough clickers. We're going to be able to, we're going to have to do standing count.
Bill, we need to I need to swear in more.
We're going to take about a brief break before we get going. Yeah, sure.
Hello? Okay, good. Hey, everybody, thanks for coming. So we've had a little bit of a complication. We still have some folks checking in, and we're just about run out of the voting clickers. So we're not going to be able to use the voting clickers. We had over 400 voting clickers available today. We've never had a town meeting that had 400 residents, so thank you all for coming, but you kind of blew up our plan. So best laid plans, right? We always have to have a contingency. Fortunately, nearly everybody that's checked in is a registered voter in town, or their children, or their department heads. So we're going to be swearing in some more tellers to help the moderator keep standing counts on our votes. So if anybody here would like to volunteer to be a teller, please make yourself known to the town clerk, and she can swear you in for that job. Bear with us for a few minutes while we move to Plan B. Thank you.
Hey, Joe, is there any way to use the clickers and then supplemental cards?
So they were just further, some of them were too far away.
Yeah, no.
Moderator's going to try at least.
Hey, Joe. Joe, do you know what Sharon is? How many sellers do we have? All these people here volunteered, so she had 3, now I think we get 8. So, okay, that should be.
Who's control, oh, okay, there we are. Folks, we're still checking people in, and I think, and dealing with this issue, rather than folks just sit here, I think we're going to try to get going on the consent part of the agenda, which hopefully will not, will go smoothly, and then we'll at least be a little further down the road. The consent agenda and some of the other items. So, Article 1.2, reports. I recognize Jeff Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the reports of town officers and committees be received and placed on file.
Is there a second?
Due to the ongoing public health crisis and our desire to limit the duration of town meeting, we have decided not to include oral presentations from town boards and committees at town meeting this year, and instead have asked boards and committees to post their reports on the town's website.
Okay. Any questions, discussion? Going to go with a voice vote on this. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion passes. I so declare. Article 1.3, article for consent motion. I'll now read the list of articles to be taken up and voted on as one motion. If you want to ask questions or make comments on an article, shout out "hold" as the list is read. Any article that is held will be deleted from the consent motion and taken up and considered according to its place on the warrant. Articles 2.1, 2.5, 2.6, 2.7, 2.9, 2.10, 2.14, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4. I recognize Jeff Hubbard.
I move that the articles included on the list of articles for consent motion for this 2020 annual town meeting, a copy of which has been delivered to the town clerk to be filed with the minutes of this meeting, be approved by one vote. Each motion to be deemed a separate action under the warrant article having the same corresponding number, accepting those motions that are held. Is there a second? As we typically do at every town meeting, we seek to include a number of routine but necessary articles that are not controversial in one consent motion. This allows us to limit the duration of the meeting, which again this year is even more important to us due to the ongoing pandemic. so that we can give more time to issues that are more likely to engender debate.
Are there any questions or comments? Okay, I recognize Rosemary Kennedy. Would you please come to the microphone and identify yourself and your street address?
Rosemary Kennedy, 61 Rush Street, Hamilton. I just want to make sure, Mr. Moderator, that you included Article 3.1. I'm not sure that I heard that.
I'm going to move to 3.1. I took 3.1 out because that requires a 2/3 vote, and I just thought it would be, I just didn't want to confuse things. Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, we can move to a vote. We'll go with a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The motion passes, and I so declare. There are, for the folks that are sitting along the, outside the tent, there are more chairs coming. So keep your eyes peeled. You will be able to get a chair if you choose to. Okay. Article 3.1, which was removed from the consent agenda. Yeah, okay. I would entertain a motion to take an article out of order. Is there a second? Discussion? Not. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it, and so we will take Article 3.1 out of order. Recognize John Prelage.
I move that the town approve Article 3-1 as printed in the warrant.
Is there a second? Mr. Prelage?
This article permits the town to lease property owned by the town on Tobacco Road to the Marsh Rats Shotgun Shooting Club. Great name. This lease agreement will generate approximately $9,000 for the town for the next 3 years, but does provide flexibility to the town manager. To extend the lease or to find an alternative use for the property in future years. As the Marsh Rats were the only organization to respond to the RFP, and over the short term, this is the most viable use for the property. FinCom recommends approval of this article.
Are there any questions or comments? If not, we'll go to a vote. This requires a 2/3 vote because it involves the lease of town-owned land. I'll first call for a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The motion passes. I so declare. Thank you. Okay, if you give me a minute to get myself organized here, and we'll see if we can move on to some other matters. Okay. Yeah.
Hey, attention, everybody. I just want to let everybody know, particularly those folks sitting on the outside of the tent, please be aware of how you feel. If you're feeling a little warm or a little faint, we can find other water for you. There's an ambulance to the right behind us. So, let us know if there's anything at all. If you're feeling faint, you're feeling lightheaded, we don't want anybody to pass out today. So be aware of the weather and how you're feeling in it. Thank you.
Right, okay. Okay, I would entertain we're going to try to address some of the other, hopefully non-controversial issues. So I would entertain a motion to take Article 2.8 out of order. Is there a second? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion passes, and I so declare. Article 2.8, I recognize John Prelage.
I move that the town vote pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E.5, to establish limitations on expenditures from revolving funds with such expenditure limits to be applicable from fiscal year to fiscal year unless otherwise amended by town meeting prior to July 1st for the upcoming fiscal year as follows. Recreation and Parks Fund, $350,000. Pool Fund, $125,000. Council on Aging Fund, $20,000. Emergency Dispensing Services and Clinics, $20,000.
Is there a second? Okay. Mr. Prelage?
So just as a point of clarification here, these revolving funds, these set spending limits for the revolving funds, they're not actually the budgets. And in fact, for some of these, pool and Parks and Rec, there's a good chance that spending actually will be below this level because the idea for a revolving fund is that you're only spending when you have the commensurate revenue so that it balances at the end of the year. FinCom does believe that these spending limits are consistent with what's been spent in the past and what could be spent in the coming year, and we feel that they're responsible, and we unanimously approve favorable action on this article.
Are there any questions or comments? If not, we'll move to a vote. Go to a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The motion passes, and I so declare. We had already improved Articles 2.9 and 2.10 in the consent motion, so we can move to Article 2.11. I recognize Sean Farrell.
I'm going to do it for him. Bill, I'm going to do it for him.
I'm sorry?
Sean's out here. I'm going to do it for him.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, everybody, I was making sure people were here in the back. I move that the town raise an appropriate $90,571 to the Patent Homestead Fund. Is there a second?
Mr. Olson, or Mr. Farrell. You have the...
Discussion, Mr. Melowitz, our town manager.
Thank you, everybody. Wow. The reason we're asking for a budget this year is because we're continuing with the plan to try to make this Patent Homestead self-sustaining. However, understanding that this is going to be a difficult economic year, we have reduced the plan for spending in the Patent Homestead. We've reduced the hours of the director, and we've brought our spending down as low as we can go. The goal here is to help the property earn its own keep or find a way to divest ourselves of it in the coming year. Kaylee will help us in either regard. So we've asked the FinCom, and if the FinCom would like to make a comment on their recommendation, I'd welcome it. But we're looking for a way to help the patent make its own weight, and we can't do that without Kaylee. So, Kelly?
The Finance and Advisory Committee
Please identify yourself, please.
Valerie McCormick. The Finance and Advisory Committee unanimously recommends favorable action on Article 2-11.
Okay.
Hello, Kaylee Perret, Patent Homestead Director. I don't have a lot to say because we're trying to keep it short, but I just wanted to reiterate that we had a difficult year with the business plan. We are 1 year into a 3-year business plan, and we are changing course. As the town manager said, my hours are going to be cut by 2/3 going forward for this year, so we will have less expenditures on that side. About half of the ask that we are asking for the budget this year is going back to other town expenses. It covers the finance department, DPW, the other departments in town that help make this work. So it's really only about $46,000 that goes to the property itself. Thank you.
Lastly, I'd just say of that $46,000, about 20 or so are things that we'd still have to pay for. We have to pay for insurance for the property. We pay for heating. We pay for maintenance of the property. We own the property right now. Until we don't own the property or until it becomes self-sufficient, we have to pay those things. So voting and owning this doesn't get rid of the cost of the homestead. We still have it. I'd much rather have Kaylee helping us figure out how to run it right than be just paying those costs and not having a plan. So thank you for your consideration.
Any questions or comments? If not, we can move to a vote. Try a voice vote first. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. The ayes have it. The motion passes, and I so declare. Article 2-12, Bill Olson.
I move that the town transfer the sum of $247,757 from free cash to the stabilization fund. Is there a second? I welcome either Joe or John Prulich to come up and make any comments.
This article moves free cash into our stabilization fund that's consistent with our financial reserves policy. We're taking incremental steps to gradually build to a fund that is 5% of our budget. With this transfer, which is approximately 0.75% of the budget, we'll be at almost 4.3%, so we're almost at that goal. Just so everyone knows, since this is a transfer from free cash to the stabilization fund, it doesn't affect the tax rate in any way. And FinCom unanimously recommends favorable action.
Are there any questions or comments? If not, we'll move to a vote. Voice vote first. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion passes. I so declare. Article 2-13, I recognize Rosemary Kennedy.
Good morning, everybody. Rosemary Kennedy. I move that the town transfer the sum of $907,592 from free cash to the Capital Stabilization Fund. Is there a second? And discussion will be by Mr. Demelowitz or the Finance and Advisory Committee.
Thank you. The Capital Stabilization Fund, similar to the Stabilization Fund, is part of our free cash policies. It's created to help us protect ourselves against future expenses. 2 years ago, the town passed a capital stabilization fund, and we are, Marissa, where are we at? With this vote, if it passes, we will reach the minimum amount that we wanted to have in this fund based against a certain percentage of the depreciation of value of all of our assets. So the good news is, if you vote in favor of this, we will get to that minimum number that we wanted to have according to our stabilization, our financial policies. So we hope you'll look at that. We know the town has capital needs coming up in the future. This will help us navigate that without having to continue to come ask you for additional tax dollars. So.
Any questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Perlich.
Just wanted to add a couple things. We're over that goal that we established, and one of the reasons is that we're actually, to streamline town meeting, the town isn't seeking any capital expenditures in this budget. We will probably end up doing that in the fall, and so we may actually tap this reserve fund. But once again, does not affect the tax rate because it's transferred from free cash to the stabilization fund, and FinCom unanimously recommends.
Any questions or comments?
Microphone right in front of you.
Hi, Joyce Wendling here. Could you please explain free cash? I mean, what account is that? What has it been used for? And what is the balance in it at the present?
Finance Director Marissa Batista.
So at the end of the fiscal year, we have to submit to the state all of our financial records, and they're the ones that actually certify our free cash. In other words, it's accumulation of funds over the years, and we cannot use free cash without a town meeting vote. So for fiscal year 20, we had $3 million that was approved as a free cash. We are, for this particular town meeting, we are between the Capital Stabilization Fund and the General Stabilization Fund, we're asking to use $1.1 million. And to transfer into these two stabilization funds. The remaining will stay with the town. At the end of this fiscal year, which is 2 weeks away, we need to submit it once again to the state, and they will certify a new number that could be used for FY21. But again, we cannot use any of those funds without town meeting approval.
And this is all money that has been given by the taxpayers? That is not used over the course of the years?
Over the course of the years, yes. So if there's, if we were under budget, or if there were any particular expenditures that didn't occur in that particular fiscal year, then it just stays with the town and is certified as free cash, correct?
And so the benefit of having this money sitting there and not deferring tax payments or helping the citizens who are already paying high taxes? What is that?
Actually, it has been used I want to say, for at least 5 or 6 years. There was always an article to use the free cash to reduce the tax rate, so that has been done.
Oh, good.
And we try to use the free cash to technically, our policy is to use free cash for one-time expenses. So if we have a capital, and that's why we created the capital stabilization, if we have something that we think it's a one-time expense and we could actually use free cash for without asking taxpayers. So indirectly, it is helping the taxpayers, because if we didn't have this money set aside, we would have to come to town meeting and ask town meeting to appropriate through taxation those additional tax dollars.
And so what would the balance be if this is approved? What would
Well,
be
the
left?
balance is the remaining balance will be $1.7 million, but again, at the end of the year, we can no longer use it, and then we have to resubmit to the state. They need to recertify it, and then in order for us to be able to use it, we would have to wait for another town meeting. So whether we bring an article in front of the taxpayers at special town meeting or annual town meeting. So we can't use it without the residents' approval.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll move to a vote.
I do.
Oh, okay.
Good morning, Richard Garmiel, Highland Street. So I'm hearing that this is to transfer 900,000 plus from a free cash into a stabilization fund because the town set a goal of reaching a certain amount in a stabilization fund, not that there is a statutory requirement to have that amount or any particular time period to get there. And I'm wondering, we're in the middle of a pandemic. So many people are out of work. We're short on cash. Why is the town not taking that money and putting it into the school budget that we are going to be asked to vote on later on? I heard on this article description as well as the previous article description that neither of these articles are going to cost any of us taxpayers money, but that is not true. That is absolutely false. Because if you took the 400,000 from before and the 900,000 from here, that's 1.3 million to make up the difference on the school budget. Why are we building up stabilization funds? My household has had to change my budget. We don't have stabilization funds anymore because my income has dropped by 60% due to this pandemic. I don't believe that this is a wise use of free cash. If you want to take money out of free cash, in my humble opinion, put it to where we will save money. Because later this morning, you're going to ask me to increase my taxes on my house by approximately $600 a year if I'm adding up the warrant articles. How much reduction would that be? Would I only be asked for an extra $300 a year if we move this free cash into the school budget instead? Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll move to a vote. Voice vote first. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Okay. I think we'll try a standing vote. Have we completed trading? Okay, we're going to take a brief break. We're in the process of trading your clickers for a pink piece of paper.
Corinne?
Such a deal. Kaylee, could you get me a piece of paper? Thanks. Thanks. Do you have a card? Let me. Okay, folks, if you could take your seats, please. Everyone that's entitled to vote, I'm told, now has a pink piece of paper. And just going forward, obviously we're asking people to wear masks, and even when they speak, so that folks can hear. Get up right close to the microphone. Thank you. Okay. John Prelage, okay, of the FinCom.
Just wanted to clarify just a couple of things here on this article. First of all, FinCom's perspective and why we established the policy of having a capital stabilization fund and not using it to fund operating expenses is because it is not sound fiscal policy to supplement your budget by using free cash. And it really should be used for one-time expenses, which are capital type purchases or other type of things. Because if you are using free cash to supplement and balance your operating budget, you will eventually run out of free cash and you are living beyond your means. That is the reason we have these policies. And the second thing, just to clarify here, defeating this article does not actually affect the tax rate in any way. Just as moving the money into the fund doesn't affect the tax rate, not moving it in won't affect the tax rate because it's not actually being used by this article to balance the budget.
I think we're ready for a vote. If you are in favor of the motion, which is a motion to... Okay. Jeez, and I didn't... Sure. These are extraordinary times.
So I have been asked to clarify a little bit why this article is actually significant number. So we did not include any capital expenditures in our FY20 budget. We postponed it to special town meeting per se, and we are going to be using this funding source at special town meeting. By using it, we could have just used the free cash to fund our capital expenditures at this particular annual town meeting. We try not to do that because we were trying to reduce our budget as much as we could to obviously due to the circumstances, and we felt that if we postponed our capital expenditures needs to special town meeting, at that point in time we will know what the situation is, and the intention is to actually use these funds at that point in time. So whether we vote in favor of this article or not, it will not change your tax rate. So even if this doesn't pass, your tax rate will not be changed. All it means is that the free cash amount would actually stay with the town. We will submit to the state for certification once again, and then usually around September 15, we would get our new number of certified free cash that then can be used for our following year budget. So just wanted to clarify.
Richard Garmiel of
I guess
Highland Street
is this a new question?
I'm wondering, since the town was allowed to make additional comments, if I would be able to respond to those comments as a citizen?
No. No. Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Briefly, please.
Thank you. So I think what the town council, or whatever the terminology, is not understanding and is not getting it. From the day of the formation of the town of Hamilton through town meeting 2019, all that fiscal stuff, I get it. It's great. It's responsible. Welcome to 2020. The playbook is thrown out. We cannot be putting money into savings and then asking the citizens for more money. I get it. The way the article is written today, that money can't be used for this. But that doesn't mean that a new article cannot be written and that money can be used for the exact purpose of not asking the citizens during the time when it is the biggest financial crisis since the 1920s. To pony up more money so that you can put more money into savings, 2020 coronavirus, the world as we know it, doesn't exist anymore. You cannot act in normal operating procedures right now. Stop asking us to ignore what's going on in the world. Thank you.
No applause, please. I think we're ready for a vote. Okay, we're going to ask for a standing vote. I'm sorry?
Make sure they know what a yes means.
Yeah. A yes vote means that you are in favor of funding the Capital Stabilization Fund in the amount read in the motion. No vote means that you're not in favor of that. So with all those who are in favor of the funding the motion to fund the Capital Stabilization Fund, please stand and hold your slip up. Okay, thank you. You may be seated. I think I can, I'm going to try a visual. So you may be seated. Thank you. All those that are opposed to the motion to fund the Capital Stabilization Fund, please rise.
Please be sure to look outside beyond the
Yeah. Okay. I guess we're going to go to a counted vote. Please be seated. Thank you. Okay. All those in favor, please stand and stay standing. Yeah. Sharon, excuse me, this gentleman is one of the...
just said we're here.
Coming in the red shirt.
We're gonna do the people along. Oh, let's just confirm this. Let's confirm who's coming. So you did not do the test?
Now, we counted the 10 anyway, but we didn't.
Did you count everything outside the room there?
Why don't we take this little field thing right there, plus the 10, plus the. We'll just take it. Okay.
It was just the article number.
So everybody in the side, the tent's been counted, so I can. So everybody in the tent has been counted, right? I believe everybody's. Okay. If you're inside the tent, you may be seated. Thank you. Wow.
Congratulations for setting a new
Yeah.
record for town meeting.
Yeah.
Have all the tellers handed in their, okay, thank you. We're gonna do a grid, just 1 second. All the tellers, we're gonna do a grid to make things easier.
So they can be seated.
They can be seated.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody can be seated.
Everyone can be seated. Thank you.
All right. Let him just do that.
Right.
So we can, because people are sitting on the floor, they're all
Right.
over the place.
Yeah.
And tellers, remember to count yourself, okay, in your total.
You got
So we're on the same, we're back here. Whoever counts the tent, the little tent can count it all around. No, just here. Okay? All right. Okay, is it all the tellers here? Okay, so, all right. Oh, you do? All right. Mark, you can do all of it. You have that whole side.
Someone wants to join it. Yeah, I think what we should do is have 2 people assigned to each area so that you can confer a full count and then confirm and make sure that everybody gets the same amount. So why don't we, so let's divide it, we're gonna divide it into 4 areas. So we'll have 2 people outside to do the hill, that can be you and, okay. What are your names? Mark Johnson, Greenfield. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And you'll keep every vote.
Richard?
will be your earring.
Richard? Thank you for doing this. I know I didn't expect you would have to.
The main tent, okay, Rachel and Leander, you have two people.
You want to do like, if you want to cut it in half and do two, I don't know how many, why don't we do the outside? We need two people to do the outside.
You two are doing the outside, you're doing the small tent. and
Anybody
everyone's
in that area outside of the box record?
And you want us to do the long
Anyone, basically, anyone outside of the caution gate from there over on that side, but not the 100.
Yeah, back corner, where do we stop? So see where that strengthened line is? Yeah. We won't do that. Okay. Yeah. Or we won't even do the line. We'll do second. We'll do everybody in front. Everybody in front. I'm sorry, what are you doing? So yeah, we'll take care of that.
So we're not gonna start counting yet.
Now we're gonna go to the white. So we divide the main tent. So you were gonna do this side.
So from the middle, right here is the aisle, we top on that side. We're not, we only have 3 formal votes already. Yeah, we're almost done. Just that hour-long argument over the two.
Are we ready for the no vote?
Right down the middle, you have to write.
Okay.
So we need someone to do.
And okay, this young man right here.
Folks, remember, while you're seated inside the tent, we ask you to keep your mask on. So, those of you who have your masks off, please put them back on. Thank you.
Everybody from the corner of the tent back there, okay? Outside the tent, you don't have one right now. Okay? Outside the tent, you are outside of the tent, from one pole to the next pole. Okay? Not the side, just the back, okay? All right.
Okay, we're ready? Okay, folks,
Please take your places.
if you are, we're ready to move on to the no vote. If you are opposed to the motion to fund the Capital Stabilization Fund, please stand and hold your voter card up. Thank you. This is the no vote.
I'm trying to get my assistant to come down to tell me. Did I get, and did you both come to 60?
You had the same number, okay, great.
All right.
So you guys were, and you matched? Okay, great, thank you.
So Corinne and I checked that we matched. That's a 37. Oh, is that? Yes. Yeah, just one.
She is 31? Okay. Yep, that comes down now. No. Right. With the assistant.
We have poll ads, and it's right up at the top of the count. Okay, I'll just take one of them. Oh, that's fine. The other one you can put face down over there. Okay, so those, where you just counted, those are your places for the rest of the meeting, okay? So when we call for a tellers count, all of you just come up and stand in your respective spots, okay? Thank you so much. It's 373 to 131.
Yep. You can sit down, thank you. Okay, we have a result. The vote was 373 yay, 131 nay. The motion passes, and I so declare. Okay, we're going to take a short break to get ourselves organized for the main event. And then the citizens petition that's going to get. Okay, so.
All right, Bill, drink some water, please.
Yeah. Yeah, so we ready?
Very, very hot.
Yeah, yeah. So we ready to get going for?
The count is 526.
So you can go back to 2-2 now, right?
Right.
Is it 2-2, 2-3, and 2-4 that's left?
And the citizens.
The count, we checked in
Yeah.
526.
26, I know.
Okay.
We should have got 600.
That's good for the town, though. Maybe get more people.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I think we're ready to move on. Article 2-2, General Town Department Appropriations.
Just want to let everybody know that we do have more water coming, so people keep your eyes open. The fire department should be showing up in a few minutes with water. Not from a fire hose, they actually have bottles.
So we know that Article 2-2 and Article 2-3 are related. At this point, they are separate articles, but they're related, both relate to the school budget, so in the course of the discussion, they can both be discussed together, and we'll take it from there. So, Jeff? I recognize Jeff Hubbard. Don't- This is our annual general town and school omnibus appropriations article. Okay. Yeah, okay. So I recognize Christina Schenk-Hargrove.
Good morning, everybody. Christina Schenk-Hargrove from the FinCom. Christina Schenk-Hargrove from the FinCom, making the motion. I move that the town raise and appropriate the sums read by the moderator for schools and all other town expenses which are set forth in the 2021 fiscal year budget in Appendix B of the 2020 Appendix Book and Appendix C of the 2020 Appendix Book, with the corrections read by the moderator. You haven't read the...
Yeah, we're doing, excuse me, doing it a bit backwards. I will read the numbers, and if a voter would like to discuss separately, please call out hold. $2,087,441.43 for general town government. $3,251,120.09 for public safety. $19,888,662 for Hamilton Wenham Regional School District. Okay. $253,524 for Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School District. $1,977,295.13 for Department of Public Works. $273,186.40 for Health and Human Services. $1,082,000, $302.90 for Culture and Recreation. $3,344,361.89 for unclassified. I now recognize Julie Kuchenberger, Interim Superintendent of Schools, to report on the school district budget.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me? Thank you, moderator, for the opportunity to address the residents of the town of Hamilton and talk about the school district. I'll start by giving you a high-level overview. I'll talk about where we are, what we know, what we have done so far. We'll get into the numbers more specifically, and then I will share with you what we need moving forward and what we commit to as a regional school district. Next slide, please. This high-level overview breaks down for you the expenditures, the revenues, the offsets, and then the net school budget. So the very top line where it says operating expenses, this is showing you year over year what what you all have approved in combination with our residents from Wenham for the school district to spend on teaching and learning for all of our students in both towns. Back in February, the school committee approved a budget of $38.297952 million. In May, they reduced that budget by $1.274 million, a decrease of 3.33%. You'll also notice that the revenues have been decreased. And this is really in anticipation to that shortfall that you heard Representative Hill talk about earlier this morning. We are prepared and we have reduced our budget significantly in order to prepare for our COVID-19 response. The revenues back in February were projected to be $4.7 million. Today, we're projecting them at 3.6 million. This is based on a projection of a 20% reduction, and that's a 22.92 decrease in anticipated revenues in terms of local state aid. And that comes in 3 forms for the school district. That's Chapter 70, Circuit Breaker, which is reimbursement for special education, and regional transportation. Next slide, please. So here's what we know. We know our taxpayers are stressed and overextended. In the town of Hamilton, taxpayers carry the burden for the majority of the cost of public education. We also know that COVID-19 has stressed our families in more ways than we can even quantify at this time. We also know that this budget that you are about to vote on is less than what the district needs to support the known needs of our students, not to mention the unknown needs in response to COVID-19. We also know that when our students come back in the fall, and for our students who are participating in the extended school year, this is a time when they need their teachers, their administrators, their school counselors more than ever. And at this moment, we know that we are going to have less to offer them when they come back in the fall based on these reductions. Next slide, please. So what have we done to respond to what the new fiscal reality is? We've reduced our budget by $1.274 million. That also caused us to have to reduce nearly 23 positions, including teachers, teaching assistants, and other critical supports. This also includes 4 district-level administrators. Their positions have been eliminated. We also have reallocated some of our existing resources in order to respond to COVID-19. We know that we are going to need lots of safety supplies next year. The way this town meeting feels, this is possibly what school's gonna look like next year. We know we're gonna need masks and hand sanitizer and gowns and shields and goggles, gloves, all kinds of other safety equipment. We are not asking the taxpayers for more money to do that. We are reallocating existing resources and have already begun our response as we await guidance from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. We are also committed to seeking alternative funding sources, looking at grants, and accepting donations. So in your handout, the school committee has created for you that you found on your chairs or were given when you walked in. There's a high-level overview of some of the other positions that have been reduced. I won't read that to you as you've had plenty of time to read it this morning. Next slide, please. So here we get into the nitty-gritty of the numbers. This is a high-level overview. The way that the school committee approves the budget is by these 11 DESI categories. It is a little deceiving because the way that positions are categorized isn't necessarily intuitive to what you read here, but we wanted to show you what we've been spending in the district. FTE stands for full-time equivalent, so you can think of that as a person or a position when you're looking at those numbers. And we also wanted to illustrate for you the change over the last 3 months. And so this highlights for you that reduction of 1.274 plus million, leaving us with an expenditure increase of 5.93%. Some of the drivers behind that increase are increased needs for specialized educational placements for some of our most vulnerable students. These are students who may require an alternative setting outside of our public schools in order to access their free and appropriate public education. That is our moral and ethical obligation as a community to take care of all of our kids. And when they require alternative placements, we too have to fund those placements. This budget also, though, allows us to enhance some of the programs that we have in the district so we can keep more of our kids in and have more local control over our spending. Next slide. This is that same information for you, just cleaned up without that change column, so you can see again how the budget has evolved over time. And then the next slide breaks down the net assessment. And so remember, when we're talking about net, this is our expenditures plus our revenue, or minus our revenue really, is what gives us that net cost at the bottom. So in response to our revenues going down, or anticipation that our revenues will go down due to the current global pandemic that we're all experiencing and the economic crisis, we've responded and we've reduced our budget by nearly $1.3 million. Next slide, please. Here's a look at our debt service. This has not changed since the school committee originally voted in February. And this shows you how we're paying for some of the capital projects, including the most recent capital project where we had to replace the sprinkler system at the Winthrop Elementary School in order to be able to have clearance to open the school doors. We do have aging facilities in our district, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. The idea is that you are planning along the way so that you don't have to have a crisis response when something is unsafe or doesn't meet current guidelines. Next slide, please. So this again is the total assessment for both the operating and the capital budget, and you'll have a chance to vote on these two items separately in two separate warrants today. So what do we need moving forward? We all know from firsthand experience the critical role that schools play in our community, beyond academics, beyond preparing our students to be active participants in our society. The schools play a core function in ensuring that our economy can thrive. So what we need moving forward is clarity around the resources that we have so that we can adequately prepare for the COVID-19 response, so that we can meet the expectations that will be handed to us, hopefully in the next week or so, from the Department of Education, and get our kids back in school. When we invest in our schools, we can reopen the economy, and we can experience economic recovery. We also need flexibility to support the unanticipated safety needs, social needs, emotional needs, and physical needs of our students, our families, and our staff. As an educator who has a 6.5-year-old, I can say firsthand that trying to work from home in a crisis while also trying to educate my child from home in a crisis has not been very successful. I need her to go back to school. Today would be good, but I'll wait for the fall. We also need community support and collective will to weather this crisis so that we can position the towns and the schools in the best possible light. This is not a strategic budget. We had a very strategic budget that was going to help us change the way we were spending our money so that it could be more efficient and more effective. That was our February 12th budget. This is a crisis response budget. This is a budget that will get us through this storm together as a community, providing essential services to our students and supports to our staff so that we can rebuild in a more efficient and effective way moving forward. So as a school district, we're committed to our part. We know that the cost of education continues to rise year over year. I'd love to tell you that that's going to change in the near future, but the pure fact is that it won't. The cost of education is going to continue to rise if we plan to recruit and retain high-quality teachers that our students need and deserve. But we are committed to reevaluating our existing programs, some of the reductions, some of the eliminations that we made in this $1.3 million reduction was to set up the incoming superintendent and leadership team to work with the teachers and families to start to think differently about how we use our school resources. We aim together to increase efficiencies and effectiveness. And I say these things to you with confidence as I've spent nearly 100 hours with the incoming superintendent over the last month and a half talking about all of these decisions and thinking forward for the community and the schools. We know that we need to commit to creating a year-over-year predictable budget, making incremental investments that are smart and evidence-based so that the community can sustain and support the schools in the way that all of you want to. We also need to sustain a collaborative and unified partnership with our elected officials on the Board of Selectmen and the FinComs. This year, Joe and I, town manager and I, had an opportunity to work collaboratively with the town administrator in Wenham and change the narrative about how we think about supporting our communities. We've made a lot of progress this year, and I know that the school committee, along with the Board of Selectmen and the FinComs, are committed to continuing to do that. One community, all rowing in the same direction. So when we start to think about what it'll mean to get our kids back to school in the fall, we certainly can't wait, but we know we have lots of careful planning and thoughtful design to do in order to prepare for that. On June 5th, the Commissioner of Education disseminated guidance about the safety supplies, formerly known as PPE, that schools would be required to have in place in order to open our doors. A 12-week supply, meeting the minimum guidance, will cost the district about $138,000. We're working closely with our regional partners to see if we can do some power purchasing, if we can share some resources in order to make that number come down a little bit more. We also know that having amazing classroom teachers, as we do in Hamilton Wenham, is the most important ingredient in a successful school system. But if we have to flow in and out of in-person and remote learning or some sort of hybrid, the only way our students are going to be able to benefit from that amazing classroom teacher is if they can see the teacher. We need to go one-to-one. We need to ensure that all students have access to their teachers. Even if we're in school, our current model of sharing devices and rolling carts down the hall and having devices in this classroom in the morning and this classroom in the afternoon is not going to be safe. With hygiene in mind, we know we need to go one-to-one. I mentioned earlier how we have some existing resources. The school district did receive $74,000 in CARES Act funding that we are already planning to spend toward bringing this number down that you see on the screen. We also have reallocated our operating budget in a way that allows us to bring that number down. We still have about a $158,000 gap, and we're hoping that we can get some support either from the towns or from the state and federal government to close that gap. We're also hearing all kinds of ideas about what school will look like in the fall. Might we have to have physical barriers around desks? Will students need to be 6 feet apart in a classroom? How does that work if there's only so much square footage in a classroom? Will they need to wear masks all day? That one's pretty much a given. Will they only be able to move in one direction in the hallway? So we have to think about signage and floor markings, much like you see when you go to the supermarket. What will transportation look like? How do we mitigate those costs and safety measures? We also know that we're going to need additional cleaning supplies. You all are so fortunate to have a maintenance and custodial team that is really committed to making sure our schools are healthy and safe. And I think one of the reasons why we were able to keep our schools healthy when we were in session in February and early March was because of some of the proactive work they did to disinfect all the schools over February break. We have those tools in place. We're ready. And then, of course, if we do have to socially distance, you know in our elementary schools, most of our kids sit around desks, sit around little tables. We don't do desks in rows anymore, or at least we didn't. So we may need some additional furniture in order to safely distance students from one another as we come back in the fall. Notice nothing I talked about here really has anything to do with instruction itself. This is a whole nother layer on top of the challenges school districts already face, and we need your support so that we can respond effectively and get our kids back in school. The other part, the other vote that you'll have today is to approve our capital requests. This goes hand in hand with our operating budget. There are significant safety items that we need to address. We did not have a capital budget at all this year, and I'll just be honest with you, I've never heard of a school district not having a capital budget at all. And when you look at our facilities, you see the aging infrastructure. We know it's only going to cost us more money down the road to react than it is to be proactive and preventative. So to highlight some of the things here, when we're talking about safety and security, we're talking about all of our schools across the district having better access to the building so that when people come to visit the building, our students are still safe. But in the meantime, we are still looking for some of those grants. Recently, we were awarded, in partnership with our public safety team, a Safer Schools, Safer Community grant for about just under $50,000 that we're going to use to mitigate some of those security and safety costs. The other item on the list here is looking at elementary schools, doing a site plan. Year after year for the last 3 years, we've been putting in a statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority so that we can get some support in updating and renovating our schools. What we've heard is that we really need to have an educational plan that's supported by the community to make our application more viable. It costs money to make a good plan. This capital budget supports that. Our original plan with the furniture that you see listed here was to build a model classroom out across the district that we could then replicate at an incremental way over time. But this money now plays a different role. This money allows us to purchase additional desks, tables, and prepare for what our COVID-19 response might need to look like. This money is essential. The Turf and Field project has been an ongoing thing for almost a decade here in the towns of Hamilton and Wenham. We had a plan, we didn't act on the plan, so now the plan needs to be updated to make sure that it's equitable and we're addressing all Title IX needs. This money allows us to prepare for that. If you've been in front of the middle school, you've noticed I don't know the right adjective to describe the entryway, but it's extremely unsafe. This year we had 3 significant injuries. One was a student, one was an employee, and one was a parent that just walking in and out of the building tripped and fell over the crumbling sidewalk. We need to replace that. It's a liability. So this capital ask is almost $1 million, $958,000. This would be something that we would ask to finance over time, and so this year the impact on the debt service is about $15,000 to make the first principal payment. The money that we'll save by making these investments will be will absolutely benefit the school districts in the town in a multiple of ways. The one important thing to remember about the capital budget, these are estimated numbers. These aren't the actual numbers. We will only borrow what we need. We will only spend what we need. These numbers will get refined over the next coming months if you approve the capital budget. Next slide, please. I'm almost there, just 2 more slides. I just want to remind you all and thank you, well, first thank you for your continued support. I had no idea what a town meeting was going to look like. It's my understanding that this is the biggest turnout since like the 1950s. I don't know if that's a fact, but I heard that. And this says a lot to what matters most to you and your community values. Our challenges are big. The school district can't do it alone. We need you. If we all work together and we're clear about our values as a community, everybody wins. Our kids, our seniors, our families, the economy. We need to invest in our schools, to reopen school, so that we can all experience economic recovery. Lastly, I just leave you with the high-level overview of what does this mean? What is your portion as the town of Hamilton in terms of supporting the net school budget? With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. I think we'll now I'm going to recognize Joe Demilowitz to give a brief report on the town. Thank you.
You got me? Good afternoon, or not quite afternoon yet. Good morning still. I'm going to try to be brief. I know we're all hot, and there's going to be a debate after this anyway, so I'll try to keep it quick. The fiscal year 2021 budget proposal is for $34,189,580 in total spending for both the town and schools. This total increase is a spending increase of $1,183,509 over the FY20 budget. I would note the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District assessment increase was $1,550,000 and $154, and the town decreased its budget from FY20 by $320,000. The town budget does also include the stabilization transfers that you approved a few moments ago. Let's see if I can work this. There we go. These are the budget categories that you're being asked to vote on in Article 2-2. Total spending, again, is $32,157,893. If you take out the schools, the Essex Aggie, and the unclassified, the total spending for the town is about $8.7 million. That covers DPW, public safety, general government, insurance for our workers, everything. In short, just over 60% of our budget goes to the schools, and then there's another 14.0% that goes to unclassified. That's things like unemployment insurance, debt service, things that we can't avoid paying. So the town gets 25% of the budget that you approve, total. Revenues come from primarily your property taxes. That really large portion makes up 88% of our revenues. We also get some motor vehicle excise tax. We used some free cash to put into the stabilization accounts. And we get about 2.1% of our budget from state aid. When we talk about the tax rate to support the budget, people always want to know why the budget continues to go up. Certain things, like any household budget, your costs go up a little bit every year. We have to offset that with the amount of per thousand that we charge in taxes. You'll see here that for the last several years, the tax rate's gone up. This year in particular, it's jumped from $16.98 in FY20 to a projected $17.82 in FY21. But that is not just due to the spending. You'll see here that we're projecting a flat valuation for homes in the town. So if our spending goes up a little bit, but we do not increase the value of the homes in town, then the tax rate has to go up. That's the mathematical formula. It doesn't balance any other way. Projecting a flat valuation is one of the things that has us in this position of having to ask for such a large tax rate this year, or project such a large tax rate this year. We also are not currently in the position of having to ask for Proposition 2.5 override to fund operating expenses. This slide shows you what we refer to as excess levy capacity. We have the amount of money that we raise in the tax levy through your taxes, and then we have a capacity. We are near our ceiling. After this year, we'll have about $147,000 below our ceiling. So beyond this year's budget, if there's anything in the way of more than a 2 or 3% increase in any budget item next year, we'll be asking for an override. There won't be any other way to fund your stuff. And when I talk about we cut $320,000 out of the budget this year, that was not easily done. People will say to me later this summer, oh, how come they're not cutting the grass at the park as much? Because we got rid of our summer help. There are a number of other examples. How come you only have a part-time person working in the Board of Health? Because we had a retirement, and rather than eliminate hours across the board in our clerical positions, we decided to share those duties with other clerical positions so we could keep everybody gainfully employed. We won't be able to make the same cuts next year. We just won't. So this year we're going to manage it, but it's going to be painful, and you'll notice it. This slide provides you a little bit of historical context. You'll see that this year, again, in the top line, we're maintaining the projected median home value in the town at about $530,000, and that would increase your bottom line taxes. If you had a home valued at the median, $550,000, that would increase your taxes by about $445,000 over last year. At this point, we'll take questions, and I have other slides if needed, but I think that gives you the general overview of where we stand. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm told that our State Senator Bruce Tarr has arrived, and so I'd like to recognize him and ask him if he'd like to come forward and make a few very brief remarks. Okay, can we just let Bruce...
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and through you to the members of town meeting. I will take your caveat very seriously and be extremely brief, but I would be remiss if I didn't come to this microphone and tell everyone in this assembly how inspiring it is to see so many people gathered together for the purpose of democracy in the town of Hamilton. Congratulations to everyone for coming out today, and thank you. I also want to join with all of you. I know that Jeff Hubbard and Peter Clark and Edward Howard were recognized as well for their service to the town. I want to join with Representative Hill in thanking them for their service, and I look forward at the appropriate time with being able to present them with appropriate Senate citations. Last but not least, Mr. Moderator, I would suggest, as I know my colleague in the House has indicated to you, that we are in a very unpredictable time with regard to state government. We still do not have a state budget, and it is not likely that we will have one for at least a couple of months. And that is primarily due to the fact that we are waiting to see what the federal government will do to provide aid to cities and towns and to states. And we are also anticipating the results of a postponed tax deadline for income tax to July 15th. We will provide you with as much information as we have once we begin to get it. But again, I will end where I began and say thank you to the 3 individuals that are recognized today for their service to the town. And thanks for all of you for reminding us that whether there is a pandemic or anything else, our democracy must survive, and it will thrive with participation like we see here today. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Bruce. Okay, just before, because I did do things out of order, I'd ask Christina Schenk-Hargrove to come up and make the motion, so we... No.
All right, now it's time. Christina Schenk-Hargrove from the FinCom. Making the motion. I move that the town raise and appropriate the sums read by the moderator for schools and all other town expenses which are set forth in the 2021 fiscal year budget in Appendix B of the 2020 Appendix Book and Appendix C of the 2020 Appendix Book, with any corrections read by the moderator, accepting those items held. Yes.
Yes. Is there a second? Okay. Any comments from the...
So for commentary, since the school budget item has held, that changes my remarks a little bit, but as you heard, this article asks you to vote on the town operating budget, and ultimately will be on an amount for the schools. I hope you received and read the materials that were sent by mail, but I'm going to recap the information very quickly. I was asked to make 2 corrections to the summary, and one is that the amount that says 1.2 million in the 1, 2, 3, in the 4th paragraph of the summary, it says the Hamilton-Windham Regional School District budget request represents an increase of total school spending by over 1.2 million. That should be 2.5 million, but that still is that increase of 8.25% for Hamilton. And then late information was received by the town that the Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School budget, they made late changes and decreased their budget, so they are actually decreasing the amount that they will be asking by $1 million over last year. Those items do not change the amount that will be requested by the town or is being requested by the schools, but I wanted to make sure to get in those corrections. So first, let me address the town operating budget. As Joe Demelowitz explained very nicely, this budget for the town operating budget represents a significant reduction from the budget that was proposed before the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic were recognized. And from that first budget was already the result of careful consideration and came out to about 3.7% more than last year's town operating budget. But once it became clear that the state and federal funding would be cut because of the pandemic and also recognizing the financial hit that residents could face, the town officials cut their budgets further. And as Mr. Demelowitz indicated, while the town was able to avoid any outright layoffs, there are cuts in hours and positions, and all but the most vital spending has been delayed. The resulting budget is lower than last year's budget by about 5.2%. As I did want to make a note, as you're looking at the school's budget, I think a lot of people have really studied these, so you may know that, but if you don't, just be aware that there is the Hamilton-Wenham School District, and there is also the Essex North Shore Ag Tech School. So if they're looking at total school budgets, that's why those numbers may vary. Joe did note the shares of the costs and that this Hamilton's share of the Hamilton Regional School District budget is just under 64%. As you have also heard, the schools face cuts from state and federal funding. The schools do face cuts from state and federal funding as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the schools and the residents in the past weeks have spent a lot of time and effort cutting the budget to reflect those funding cuts. But the schools did not reduce the amount that they are asking the town for. So that amount has not changed and is still 8.25% more than last year. All of this is to say that the Board of Selectmen decided to present the school budget to you in two parts. This article that we're discussing right now is for the full town budget and is intended to appropriate an amount to the schools that represents a 5% increase for Hamilton's share of the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School District. I'm just going to repeat that. It's intended to represent the full town budget and a 5% increase for the schools. They asked for 8.25%, and this would give them 5%. The rest of the 8.25% that the schools have asked for is in the next warrant article. At the time that the decision was made to split the warrant article, a 5% increase in the school budget was around the average increase over the past several years, approximately. Increasing school budgets raised concerns about escalating tax rates that would require an override. And as you heard, unless by in the normal operation of things, we are at the point where next year we will require an override because we will have to raise taxes more than the amount that is allowed in a normal town meeting by Proposition 2.5. And I hope that you did read that handout if you're not familiar with Prop 2.5 and that was useful. It was felt at that point that it was important to make the budget and the tax implications of the school budget crystal clear to voters. If you support the full school budget, you may and you should vote for both articles, and if both articles pass, then the school's requested budget will be appropriated. If you, and the FinCom committee voted to support this Article 2-2.
You can. Mr. Olson.
Good morning. Just wanted to acknowledge that the volunteers and town employees in the first two rows have worked tirelessly over the last 3 months to really bring you this meeting and bring you the best decision and the best choices we could. With that being said, I just wanted to acknowledge that we did have a joint meeting between the school committee and the Board of Selectmen on Wednesday, working up to the last minute to make this happen. And the Board of Selectmen voted 5-0 in favorable of Article 2-2. We voted 3-2 favorable for Article 2-3 and 5-0 favorable for Article 2-4. Thank you.
Okay. I think we'll just to hopefully keep things straight. Are there any questions or comments regarding the town budget amounts, apart from the schools? Okay, I think we'll take a vote on the town budget amounts then, and then turn to the school budget. I'm sorry. Yeah, that would include the, just 1 minute, that would include the Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School District amount, but not the Hamilton Regional School District amount.
I'd like to make a motion to amend Article 2-2.
I think I'd like to take care of the town budget.
How does that?
Yeah, I was proposing it. Okay, okay.
And then you can vote the whole thing at once. if you- that's
Yeah, okay. Okay, Mr. Lee, I'd entertain your motion now.
Hello, Gene Lee, 7 Anthony Road, a member of the school committee. I'd like to amend Article 2.2 by increasing the amount for the school district by $603,075 to reflect the full amount approved by the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee on May 27, 2020, and then certified with the town of Hamilton by the district's treasurer. The full amount of the school district, inclusive of this motion, will be $20,227,834.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Mr. Lee, do you want to make a brief explanation?
Sure, thank you. While the town has cut their budget, so have the schools. So as Dr. Kuchenberger mentioned, anticipating a 20% decrease in state funding, the school committee also reduced our budget by $1.274 million. This has resulted in staff cuts of 23 people. This includes teachers and languages, librarians, elementary TAs, preschool TAs, 4 teachers in the middle and high school, maintenance workers, and other administrators. Reducing the budget further would result in potential cuts in arts, music, sports, and electives. A defeat of Article 2.3 does not necessarily mean a lower school budget. The school committee would need to go back, reassess their budget, and another town meeting will be held. This motion to combine the 2 warrants articles allows the school district the flexibility to be able to anticipate any unknowns coming up when the school opens next fall. I want to mention that the $1.274 million that has already been cut results in a year-over-year budget increase of only 5.93%. Okay? The schools are required to educate all students. We don't get to make a choice. So in FY20, we had an additional 7th grade kindergarten class that was unanticipated. We had an additional preschool class that was unanticipated. You either can have larger classroom sizes or increase the classes and the teaching staff so that you can accommodate what we want to do. The school committee and the school district is in charge. The charge is to raise academic achievement. That is what we're here to do. This budget presents our opportunity to maintain the high quality of the schools. That's what we're here to do. That's the budget that we presented. And even with the $1.274 million cut, and the potential cuts that may have to happen if 2.3 is defeated, again, it doesn't necessarily mean that a reduction in the school budget will occur. It just means that you're squeezing more out of the schools, jeopardizing additional services and academic programming needed for all students. Thank you.
Okay, we'll entertain discussion regarding the amendment, the amendment only at this point. Yes, yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Dave Wanger. I'm Chair of the Finance and Advisory Committee, but I stand before you this afternoon, or this morning, I'm not sure which, not as the chair, but as a private citizen, because I'm part of the minority. You heard there was a 3-2 vote on 2.3, and I was in opposition to both the consolidation and the 3.25 extra 600,000 contained in 2.3. Thus, I speak to you as a private citizen. I want to acknowledge the cogent discussion by both our town manager and the school superintendent and Jean Lee. With their efforts and our commentary and other discussion today, I hope you have been fully informed of what's at stake here. I voted as I did because I thought you ought to have an opportunity to parse out the school request, to have our assessment go up by 5%, which is part of 2.2, and then to have separate consideration of the additional money beyond the average increase of 5%. That is the extra 600,000, the extra 3.25. If you vote to consolidate, you lose that opportunity to analyze it separately, and you're forced into a position of having to consider it as an aggregated amount. And that may drive people into a position of not approving the budget, period. That's not fatal to our operation because there is a 1/12 budget alternative adopted that would allow us to carry on. If the school's a full increase request, 825, $1.5 million, is approved, the tax rate goes up 84 cents to an estimated $17.82. The tax burden on an average valued home, $613,000, is above $10,500. The tax burden on an $800,000 home rises above $14,000, and that doesn't count the 2% CPA add-on charge. As you heard, that would bring us, the school's request, within $147,000 of our maximum taxing capacity, just about ensuring, as the superintendent acknowledged, there will be further increases in further years, just about ensuring our travel to Prop 2.5 territory. Some of you recall how that was a contentious, divisive atmosphere, and it lasted for years. The increase the school seeks will be a part of the base component. It will be built in so that fiscal 22 increases will be on top of that. It is all aggregated. That 8.25% does not disappear. Please note also, this is not a criticism, but you should be aware of the facts, that the school has an unfunded estimated liability for OPEB, the insurance for retired people, of $40 million. Our share is $24 million. That has to be funded by taxation. Also, the school is interested, I think, in looking at constructing a new school and in improving other facilities. These are all costs that the tax rate is going to have to absorb. I want to speak a bit about your duty and responsibilities as I see it. You act as judge and jury in this proceeding. You get to evaluate all the arguments, all sift through the facts, and make a judgment on the fate of the issues. But you're really making a judgment on your own fate. And please remember that. The superintendent emphasized that this is all about community. So as voters assembled here, you should take into account not just one issue, but the interests generally of the entire community. This community has a need for services: police, fire, public works, administration. And by the way, those services not only benefit the citizens, they also benefit the schools. So that if you... Thank you, sir. I will conclude. In response to the pandemic, the town did reduce its budget by 5%. The schools did not decrease their ask for the assessment coming from your tax dollars. And I understand there's a likelihood that that 1.274, which prompted the decrease, the state aid reduction, is likely not to occur. So that I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, if you came here this morning as a one-issue voter, please consider the entire community. 20% of the families are direct participants in the school system. 100% are participants in the community. If the community falters for lack of ability to pay taxes, the schools as well as the entire community will suffer. I apologize for my extended remarks. I thank the moderator. Thank you.
Any further discussion regarding the amendment? The amendment being to put the amount of Article 2.3 into Article 2.2.
School Street. I am a school committee member. Please know that if state funding is returned to the district, anything that goes above our 3% E&D will be returned to the towns once it's certified by the state. So it's not, if funding does come back, we are not going to put it towards the budget FY21. We are going to hold it in our reserves and then return it to the towns. Thank you.
Mr. Ramsey, I see you, but could you go over to the microphone over there? Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, I think there's a technical problem. You can't merge different articles. And the subject matter for which the proposed amendment is the subject matter for the next article. So I think it should not be, it's not an appropriate amendment.
I appreciate your point of view, Mr. Ramsey. For those who don't know, Bruce Ramsey was our longtime town moderator and did the job very well. I considered this, and I spoke about it with town council and got other input, and I came to the position it is rather unique. It's not even covered in town meeting time, which is our moderator's Bible, but whereas it is the same subject matter, I concluded that the two articles could be merged. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my position as moderator. But thank you for your input. Is there any other discussion regarding the amendment? I sense we're ready to. Okay, then please go to. If you're going to we do want to move things along. If you want to speak, please try to be at the microphone so we can save a little bit of time. But
Mark Gray, Bay Road. I just want to know how 2-3 will be affected by this amendment.
It will be, we will pass over it because it will essentially, the money will have been, quote, moved into 2-2. Okay, you can go to the, I recognize Rosemary Kennedy.
Everybody, Rosemary Kennedy, 61 Russ Street in Hamilton. I'm a member of the Board of Selectmen, and I speak as a private citizen in the minority of Article 2.3. Hamilton always has and will always support our children and our schools. I myself have 2 young nephews attending our school system. Implicit in our support is the understanding that the school budget will be fair and reasonable. The current school department budget was conceived well before the COVID-19 pandemic. Many of the items in that budget are not relatable to current circumstances. They include an aggressive and expensive plan to reconfigure school functioning in the setting of what was an ideal economy. The school have asked us for an 8.25% increase in their budget, regardless of the current economic crisis, and they have not reduced their request to the town. Many towns, including top-rated school systems such as Brookline, have reduced their ask. Brookline schools voted level spending, 0% increase. Newton schools cut their original ask from 4 to 2.9% and gave back $1 million in unused funds from fiscal '20. Manchester Essex schools went from a 3.8 previously approved school budget at town meeting in January and have now reduced their ask to 2.8%. Likewise, Lexington asked for a 4.2 increase, then agreed to give back $3 million of unused funds from fiscal '20 to help fund the new budget. Milton originally asked for a 3.7% increase, now reduced to 1.8%. Salem schools just voted a 0.5% increase. These are examples of shared sacrifice between town and school administrations. Our own administration, as you have seen, has cut its budget by 5%, including staff, services, and capital expenditures. Other factors justify reducing the Hamilton-Wenham school budget include uncertainty about what school will look like, whether all the projected overhead costs will be needed if we have a remote or hybrid school structure. Additionally, and even more importantly, we have a 20% unemployment rate in Hamilton, according to Boston Globe data. How will those families pay their mortgages and taxes and provide for their families? If this budget passes, in total, there will be a $750 tax increase to the average homeowner with a $613,000 home. A burden on many households and devastating to those unemployed or have had a salary cut, causing major sustained trauma for those individuals and families. Importantly, a school department does not exist in a vacuum, but is part of a community. What lesson are we...
Over your time, Ms. Kennedy.
Okay, 30 seconds. I know this is hard to hear, but it's important. May I just wrap up?
Please.
Okay. What lesson are we teaching our children when we think only single purpose?
Hey, please. It's within the moderator's purview to allow a little bit of extra time. This is a town meeting. It's democracy at work. It's not always easy, and I will not tolerate shouting from the crowd. I'll ask people to be removed if that continues.
3 more paragraphs, I'm sorry.
No, I don't think, no, I think...
Okay, well, let me now finish this one sentence. Please.
Ma'am, you're one sentence, ma'am.
Thank you. What lesson are we teaching our children when we think only single purpose, cloaked in an emotional appeal, and thereby disregarding those hardships of the greater community, our neighbors?
Okay, is there any other discussion regarding the amendment? I know we're all hot, and I'm certainly cranky. Yeah, okay. Sir, identify yourself.
Yeah, Larry Sargent, 16 Ricker Circle. I just want to speak to the amendment of blending the 2 articles. I urge defeat of that to allow the town to have the independent vote of the 2 different articles. So that's all I want to say. I'm not talking about budget numbers, but I recommend defeat of the article. Defeat of the motion.
Thank you. Any other discussion regarding the motion? I'm sensing a desire to vote. I think we'll go directly to a standing count. And so I would ask those who are in favor of the motion to amend Article 2.2. Wait a minute. Okay. Please, if you're in favor of the motion to add the amount of 2.3 and to essentially merge it with 2.2, then please stand and hold up your voter's card.
Oops, hold on.
This is just a majority. Okay, you may be seated. If you are opposed to the proposed amendment, please stand. You think we should do a... Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, you may be seated. Okay, I rule that by a majority, the amendment passes. The amount. Okay, so we now return to the main motion, which is Article 2-2, and I'll entertain discussion about Article 2-2 as amended.
6 Rock Maple Ave. I just want to speak to the overall school budget. Clearly, what's been indicated is this spending, this level of spending is unsustainable. And what we face in the future is a lot of overrides and tax increases. Our tax base is staying stable. It's not building because we're not seeing any kind of development in the town. So we're looking at many years of overrides that builds in these tax increases year over year. That's point one. Point two is I see a real lack of accountability. And it's not because people don't have great intentions. I know the people on school committee are committed to great education, and we all support great education. But what Jean said was, and I think this gets to my point, is the school committee are an advocate for the education. That's great, but there's no fiscal accountability. It's a $37 million corporation, and nobody inside is looking at, are we producing a high-quality product at the least possible cost? So I have a suggestion that I'd like the school committee to consider in its next fiscal year budget, that they incorporate the funds to support an operational audit, just like it was done 10 years ago, and they discovered there was $4 million in cash they didn't know they had. Maybe they are producing in a high-efficiency mode, and that would be great for all of us to learn. And if that's so, then we have to figure out how to pay for it. If not, that operational audit could serve as a roadmap for improvement. So I think we owe it to ourselves to at least ask the school committee and the schools to look internally and prove to us that they are operating and producing high-quality education at the least possible cost. Thank you.
Please identify yourself.
My name is Jay Burnham, 21 North Street in Hamilton. What a year this has been, 2020. If ever there was a year of uncertainty, if ever there was a year of economic decline, if ever there was a year of widespread social isolation, if ever there was a year of catastrophic losses, loss of life, loss of homes, loss of jobs or diminished livelihoods, loss of stability and control, 2020 has been that year. 2020 is not the year to ask for more. It is the year to understandably expect less and accept less and make do with less, like so many of us are doing. I wonder if there's a single employed person in this meeting or in our town that would not accept a 5% decrease in salary in the coming year in order to keep his or her job. You heard earlier a gentleman mention that he'd lost 60% of his income this year. So I doubt it. Some of you have actually lost your jobs. Many have lost significant savings. 44 million Americans have filed for unemployment assistance. Doesn't that tell us something? And let's be clear, all the other departments in Hamilton are accepting decreases. The fire department, the police department, recreation, public services, all are working for less and with less. And they are essentially gifting their losses to the school district. The town budget is 5% less than last year, so the schools can have 5% more than last year. What could possibly be fairer than that? Especially this year of unmatched uncertainty, stunning economic decline, and unparalleled losses. It's painful, I know. I only hope it becomes useful discomfort. So please, no one should ask or expect or feel entitled to more. Not this year, not in 2020 of all years. Thank you.
Richard Garmiel, Highland Street, I promised my last time. So I wanted to comment on this in a couple of different reasons, because one thing is, as the gentleman just before me mentioned, we are all decreasing our budgets. Every other department in this town has decreased its budget, and the school is increasing its budget. This is not a time for an increase for any reasons of any kind, but I do have a couple of questions. If the reason for the increase is because we're losing 20% in state funds, although we may not lose 20% in state funds, we may get those. I heard from somebody that, well, that will be returned to the town budget, but not to my pocket. So what's going to happen is we're going to increase the school budget, and next year, when we're basing increases on percentages, it's now going to include this money. And so the increase next year will be even more, because it will be based upon a percentage of this money that's only needed because we're not getting it from the state. But I doubt I'm going to see a decrease in the school budget next year, when there's no question that the 20% from the state will be coming. So I think everybody needs to understand the ramifications. This vote does not affect your pocket just this year. It's going to affect how much you have to pay to this town every single year in the future. And they are now talking about Prop 2.5 increases. Prop 2.5 was there to protect us so that towns cannot just, in a setting of this nature, increase more than 2.5%. Well, they want to override that based upon how much. You folks are going to help them increase the amount that next year's increase will be also, if this passes. And it's a shame that we could not fund the town without having separate discussion on the schools alone.
Any other? Okay, I'll recognize Bill Olson.
Bill Olson, 419 Highland Street. I just want to say, and echo sort of a previous speaker, but I think this of all years is the year we need to support our children and our kids in this community. As having two daughters in this community, I can tell you that they've been affected by this, and all our kids have been affected by this. And they hear blippers in the news, and they hear essential this and essential this, and they ask, Dad, am I essential? And the answer is yes. Our kids are essential, and it's essential that we vote yes on 2-2 and 2-3 today. Thank you.
Ma'am?
Hi, Ann Brady, 12 Gifford Road in Hamilton. I'm a parent of 2 children in the district, and I'm a teacher in Rockport. Part of the problem is that the state's funding formula and the federal expectations for education are broken. The way school is funded does not work. We cannot do anything about that at this moment. And there needs to be activism from parents and towns and people who have a say in education to fix that funding formula. But right now, what's being asked of families and educators is impossible. Impossible to do without more money. And what we are going to be expected to do next year is absolutely impossible. It's going to cost us more than they are asking in this budget. I guarantee you. There is not the money in any school budget to cover what we are being asked to do for your children as educators. We are going to be having to fund your children's education out of our own pockets as teachers. I guarantee you. So you're saying that this is not a reasonable budget enrages me, honestly. Enrages me. Because teachers should be viewed as heroes right now. We have carried your children through this pandemic. And the fact that you are arguing to fund the schools for what promises to be a continuing pandemic is utterly outrageous. Thank you.
Ma'am.
Ann Geeky, Highland Road. I have a question for you and Town Council. If we vote on 2-2 and 2-3 and pass it, but then on the ballot, either ours or in Wenham, 2-3 doesn't pass, what happens to 2-2? Or do we just pay for 2-2, pay our town budget? What, how can we put them together?
I think you're perhaps asking about 2-4, which is,
Isn't 2-3 on the ballot also?
no. No.
No? Oh, so, okay, sorry.
There is no override question on the ballot for operational funding in Hamilton. There is a capital request, debt exclusion, that's a separate vote. That'll be Article 2-4 that comes up a little bit later on. So now you're only being asked to consider the school's request for funding from the town of Hamilton this year. If that fails, the schools will have a failed budget, and they'll have to go back, and they won't be coming back to a special town meeting to approve some other budget. If you pass it, and Wenham fails, it'll fail, and then we'll have to have another special town meeting or accommodate it some way. But you will be setting a ceiling of sorts if you vote today. So, is that right?
Any other comments or questions? Then I think we're ready to go to a vote. Ma'am? Yeah, please. I'm going just so we're clear, I'm going to. Okay.
All right, so this is the motion now. I move that the town raise and appropriate $32,760,968.84 for the schools and all other town expenses which are set forth in the 2021 fiscal year budget in Appendix B of the 2020 Appendix Book and Appendix C of the 2020 Appendix Book, with the corrections, with the amendment that was proposed, adding $603,075. Is there a second?
Second. Thank you. Okay. I think, so we now have the motion. It's been seconded. I think we've had, I'm sensing that of the meeting is that we've had adequate discussion. So we will move to a vote. I think we'll have a standing vote. So if you are in favor of Article 2.2 as amended, which includes all town and school budget amounts, please stand and hold up your Okay, you may be seated. If you are opposed to Article 2.2 as amended, please stand and hold up your cards. Yeah, okay. I rule that the ayes have it. The article passes, and I so declare. Article 2-4. And, well, first, we're passing over Article 2-3 because that amount was amended into Article 2-2. Hearing no cry to deal with it separately, we're going to I'll pass over it. Article 2-4. I recognize Julie Kuchenberger. No, this is Article 2-4, and the script says, okay, so you've dealt with as far, okay then, thank you very much. Then Valerie McCormick, please, if you would make the motion.
I move that the town, in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 71, Section 16D, approve the borrowing authorized by the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School District School Committee in the amount of $958,000 for the purchase and equipping of the items listed in the district's FY21 capital projects budget, including the payment of all incidental or related costs as set forth in the warrant, provided, however, that the vote taken hereunder shall be expressly contingent upon approval by the voters at an election of a Proposition 2.5 so-called debt exclusion, allowing the town to raise the money needed to repay its share of the principal and interest on such bonds or notes outside the limits established by Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21C. Is there a second?
Are there any, if you want to address it or just sit? Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. I think we'll do a standing vote. If you are in favor of Article 2-4, please stand and hold up your voter card. Okay, you may be seated. If you are opposed to Article 2-4, please stand and hold up your voter card. Yeah. Okay, I find that the motion has a majority. The article passes, and I so declare. Yeah. Yeah. Article 3-5, Citizens Petition. Is there? Oh, okay.
Hi, Larry Sargent, 16 Ricker Circle. Mr. Moderator, I move that we take no action on this article.
Okay. Is there a second? Any discussion? You want to briefly explain?
No, the idea behind this was a request from the town leaders, the selectmen and town manager, to shorten the meeting, to take what may be a potentially lengthy discussion topic and move it to a future town meeting. So that's what was decided.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? If not, okay.
Mr. Earl, if I may just confirm that in discussions with the citizens petition petitioners, the board saw fit to do just what Larry said and expedite the meeting a little bit, and we've told the petitioners that we will revisit it on our next town meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? No, if not, then we'll vote. I'll try a voice vote. The motion is to take no action on Article 3-5. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion passes. We've taken no action. That is all our work. Before we adjourn, I'd just like to once again thank everyone for coming out and all the help that we received putting this, yes, give yourselves a hand. I'd accept a motion to dissolve. Is there a second? Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. The article passes. The motion to dissolve is passed. Oh, man.